On Woodworking with Wes a while back, we did a video that talked about buying hardwood lumber. And we talked about the different terminologies that you use, the thicknesses and the way it comes from your lumber store. If you were going to go to a Home Depot and buy your lumber, you would buy 3/4 inch thick, and it would be 3/4 inch thick. If you go to a hardwood supplier or a sawmill to buy your wood, you ask for a piece of wood that is 1 inch thick or 4/4, 5/4, 6/4. We talked about all these different terms, and I would like you to go back on that video and review some of the terminologies we talked about. The one thing we didn't talk about is milling it, getting it ready for project. Now, we've done projects before, and we've talked about, okay, I milled my piece of lumber, but what we didn't talk about is what is milling. So today I'm getting ready to do a project, and we have some milling to do. Milling is basically the terminology you use to specify or indicate what you're doing to the lumber to bring it into the sizes that you want to work with. Now, I'm working on a project right now that is going to have a countertop made out of red oak, and we went and bought our red oak from our lumber supplier today. This is 5/4, so 1 1/4 inch thick wood. It has been milled at the sawmill to what they call hit and miss. In other words, it's still not rough sawn, but it's not milled or planed all the way down to the thickness that we want to use. And by hit and miss, let me show you this right here, this little indication right here. This has been run through the planer, and you can see that it's smooth. And we still have some rough sawn, some sawmill rough saw right here. And so it has been planed, hit and miss. And it's not all the way down to the dimension that I want to do. And so that's what I'm getting ready to do now. Now, the first part of milling is thickness, and we want to bring it down to the thickness that we want. Then we're going to put a straight edge on it. And so we talked about in our video that we talked about what does S2S mean, surfaced two sides. That's what we're going to do first with our planer. We're going to surface both sides. We want to end up with just 1 1/16 of an inch total thickness. Net thickness is what we want to end up with. And so we are right now with this hit and miss planing from the sawmill. We are at 1 3/16. So we want to take off 1/8 of an inch in our total thickness milling. And we're going to do that first. Then we're going to set up our jointer, and we're going to put a straight edge on it so that we can cut it on the table saw. And then we have a surfaced two sides and one edge. So S2S 1E, or surfaced two sides, one edge, or S3S, which is still the same thing, two sides and one edge. And so let's get ready to get set up, and we'll run our stock through our planer. We'll mill it down, plane it down to the thickness that we want. Then we'll set up our jointer and work the edge. For our planer, we're going to be using a benchtop planer. This is a benchtop planer that I just purchased. It's an Oliver 12.5 inch benchtop. When it means benchtop, it means it clamps to your bench, and you can move it out of the way when you're done. It has a spiral cutter head on it. Gives a nice smooth surface. We can set our measurement by the lever on top, and then we lock our head so that it doesn't fluctuate on us while we're planing. And we're going to have to plane several times on both sides in order to get it done as to the thickness that we want. So let's go ahead, and we're going to run it through several times here, and then we'll keep a measurement. Every time I run it through, I'll check my measurement and make sure where we are, so that when we get all done, we're ended up with the measurement that we want with our planing. First step in milling. Okay, we have run our material down to where we're on our last pass. And I just wanted to show you how nice the planer cleans up. When you are milling, this is what you want to end up with. You want to end up with your wood nice and clean on both sides and when you get to the thickness that you want. Now, like I say, we wanted to be 1 1/16. We got one more pass to get to that 1 1/16, but our boards are already nice and clean on both sides. So we're going to go ahead and run the one last pass, and then we're going to take our benchtop planer off and set up our jointer and get ready to do the jointing on the edge. And then we'll be ready for cutting and processing our wood because our milling will be done. One thing that I wanted to remember to mention to you, as you are running your boards through the planer, you will flip them with each pass. What that does is keep it nice and smooth on both sides and take down the wood on both sides evenly so that when you end up with your finished product, you're nice and clean on both sides. And that makes it also the most flat you're going to get by keeping it on both sides. You're just taking off the rough spots on both sides until you're perfectly smooth on both sides. Just one of the little added tricks of properly milling. So we're ready for the edges. Now that we have our oak milled to thickness, now remember we milled it to 1 1/16. And by the way, when you're talking about buying dimensional lumber from your lumber yard, 4/4, 5/4, 6/4 for the extra thicknesses, when you mill it down, we no longer do it that way. This is an inch thick, 1 1/16. You wouldn't call that 17/16. That's not how it's done. So anyway, we're down to 1 1/16, and now we have to put a straight edge. The straight edge will be so that we can run it across our table saw and make our cuts. So we'll put a straight edge on our board, and then we can make our cuts to whatever we want to do. Now, typically, I consider my milling done when I have milled it to thickness and put a straight edge. That is what I consider my milling. But you could also consider your milling if you were cutting a bunch of strips. Say you milled up a whole bunch of wood and you had a bunch of 2.5 inch strips you had to cut. That would also be considered part of your milling process because you're milling a lot of stock into a specific size. Today's, we're just doing the milling of the thickness and the edge. But let's go ahead. This is my Benchtop Wahuda 10-inch jointer. I bought this because of the extra width that it gives me and because it has a nice helical head on it. Good little jointer. I really enjoyed using it so far, and it's going to be a great addition to our shop. One of the things that I like about it is this extension that allows the table, even though it's a benchtop short jointer, by having the extension front and back, I can run longer pieces. Now, my boards that I milled this morning were 8 feet long, and I've cut them into 4 feet just because it's a little easier to handle them on a short jointer, and the pieces that I needed were going to be short also. So let's go ahead, fire this up, put a straight edge on it, and I'll show you what it looks like. We now have a nice straight edge, smooth. We've jointed all the rough. Now, just let's take a look at this a little closer. This is the sawmill edge. It's rough cut, got saw blade marks on it and stuff, and it's kind of splintery. That's one of the reasons I wear gloves whenever I do milling, is because of all the splinters. Now we have a nice, smooth, milled edge, ready to take to our table saw and cut the widths that we need that we've done on our jointer. This is what I do when I talk about milling. Now, I've seen some videos that say that you don't need a jointer. I've been a cabinet maker for scaring the death out of 50 years. This, in my opinion, is a necessity in a shop in order to be able to mill your lumber properly and to be able to build quality work. So anyway, I just thought I would show you this, show you how we do some of our milling. We're now ready to take this to our table saw and cut it into the pieces that we need to build our piece of furniture. Thank you for joining me, and thank you for watching us on Woodworking with Wes.